The Philadelphia Flyers sent shockwaves across the NHL when they signed Leo Carlsson to an $18 million a year offer sheet. We'll discuss how this impacts the New York Islanders in general and Matthew Schaefer's future with the team in particular.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We have a lot to discuss on today's show, a lot of important stuff to discuss. The big news over the weekend, the Philadelphia Flyers signing Leo Carlsson of the Anaheim Ducks to an unprecedented offer sheet worth $18 million per year. We'll talk about how that impacts the Islanders and the future of Matthew Schaefer with the team. The Islanders announcing that it will be Rocky Thompson who will be taking point, quote unquote, on the power play. We'll discuss the Islanders' power play and how Thompson's hiring impacts it. And the Islanders seem to be wanting Isaiah George to make this roster, but where exactly does he fit in? We'll take a look at that and more on today's show. Let's start with the Carlson contract because it was a doozy. This was essentially a game changer. The Philadelphia Flyers making an offer sheet to Leo Carlsson, the young, talented player on the Anaheim Ducks, who is about to be a restricted free agent. Okay, he now is a restricted free agent. And the offer sheet is worth $18 million AAV. Think about this now, though. That's now the benchmark for the NHL. And whether the Ducks match it or let him go to Philadelphia and take the four first-round draft picks that they would get in return remains to be seen. But there are other star players out there who will now be in similar circumstances. For example, Connor Bedard of Chicago and Macklin Celebrini of San Jose. They're entering the final year of their entry-level contract. And guess what? If Carlson is worth $18 million, or at least let's rephrase, if Carlson is getting $18 million a year AAV, you've got to know that the agents of Bedard and Celebrini will be asking for at least that much money, as those two players have already accomplished more than Leo Carlsson has in their respective careers. And starting next July 1st, the New York Islanders are in a position where they can legally sign Matthew Schaefer to an extension, because on July 1st, 2027, Schaefer will have only 1 year left on his entry-level deal. The importance, there are two major aspects of this Carlson signing that will impact the Islanders. The first one is this. The Islanders need to negotiate with and sign Matthew Schaefer as soon after July 1st, 2027 comes around as possible. Why? Number one, with the cap going up and with the Flyers making this very bold and very big game-changing offer to Carlson, the prices for players are going to continue to go up, and the longer the Islanders wait, the more they're going to have to pay Matthew Schaefer. So it would no longer be a shock if the Islanders have to pony up $20 million AAV for Schaefer, not for this year, not for next year, but starting in, let's say, 2027, 2028. Or 2028, 2029. But the other thing is this. You cannot get into a bad relationship with your potential restricted free agent. For better or for worse, management in Anaheim has a reputation for nickeling and diming some of their players, including RFAs, and that mishandling of things by Pat Verbeek leads to what happened this past Friday when the Flyers made that big offer. The Islanders absolutely have to be on top of Schaefer. And let's face it, this franchise cannot afford to lose Matthew Schaefer after what happened with John Tavares. John Tavares was the last first overall pick that the Islanders had before Schaefer. He was the face of the franchise for 9 years? And yet he left in bad circumstances that ended up costing the Islanders their best player without any compensation. And it was mishandled by general managers. It was mishandled by ownership. Tavares probably wasn't completely straightforward with the team. Again, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, whether Garth Snow, ownership, or Lou Lamoriello were part of the problem and how much. That's all behind the scenes stuff that we do not have immediate access to. But ultimately, it didn't work. The Islanders lose Tavares for nothing. Matthew Schaefer is the first franchise-level player, with the possible exception of Ilya Sorokin, who has been a member of the New York Islanders since Tavares departed. And to lose Schaefer for nothing, or even to lose him and get compensated for it, if it's an offer sheet or if it's a trade and sign or whatever it is, would be a huge blow to this franchise and the perception of this franchise around the league. So it will be interesting to see how Matthew Darche handles Matthew Schaefer and whether or not he is on top of this and makes things, locks things up sooner rather than later. If you're Matthew Schaefer's agent, do you want to drag this out? And rather than going for, 7 years, 20 million AAV, figure if you wait 6 months or 9 months or closer to a year, you can get 22 or 23 million. That's a question that the agent has to figure out. But the other thing that this does is this. They got to keep Matthew Schaefer happy. And whether they are able to do that or not is interesting. Does making Matthew Schaefer happy mean a greater emphasis on, hey, we've got to win now? Thinking if we make the playoffs, that will make Matthew Schaefer happier, even if we lose in the first round? Or does it mean that it's more important to build that perennial contending team and, talk to Matthew Schaefer and say, look, we may not make the playoffs this year. We're basically running it back with the same team. We think we can improve with Peter DeBoer being our coach and with a healthy Kyle Palmieri and a healthy Alexander Romanov. And we've made a few, minor additions to the bottom 6 forwards. We could compete for the playoffs, but the key is we're building for the future. Where does Matthew Schaefer fit in? Now, every indication that we've seen so far is that Matthew Schaefer is happy on Long Island, enjoying, the community, the team, his teammates, living here, all of those things. But keeping him happy and signing him to that next contract is critical for the perception of the Islanders. And just to tie it in again with the bigger picture, we are seeing, for example, with the Brady Tkachuk trade, more and more players dictating where they want to go in trades. Tkachuk wanted to play with his brother, wanted to be on a contending team. This has a negative impact on the Islanders because they have not been a legitimate Stanley Cup contender since the mid-'80s. Have not been to a Stanley Cup final since 1984, have not won a division since the late 80s, have not won a cup since 1983. The key for the Islanders is to become a team that other players will want to play for. And it's not going to happen right away. It is going to take time. And these are some of the factors that Matthew Darsh, as GM of the New York Islanders, has to juggle. He's got to get the team to be a destination for free agents. And you know, if players have more control, he's got to make sure players want to come here. It has not been the case since real free agency came in 2004. He's got to keep Matthew Schaefer happy because that is the future of this franchise. And he's also got to figure out that if you're paying, starting in 2 years, Matthew Schaefer, $20 million, and again, I'm throwing that number out as an estimate, but don't be surprised if that's the number. If right now Carlson is getting $18 million in a year, like I said, Celebrini, those guys, Bedard and Celebrini will reset the market at 20, 22, maybe 25 million AAV. Schaefer's going to get paid, and the Islanders have to figure out how to build that perennial contender while taking into account the amount of money you've got to pay Matthew Schaefer to keep him here and keep him happy. So lots of things to consider here for the New York Islanders. And no doubt that this offer sheet that the Flyers had will have a huge impact on the future of the Islanders, the salary that obviously Matthew Schaefer and maybe down the road, not maybe, definitely down the road, several other future Islanders will receive. There's a lot at stake here. And the primary thing is come July 1st of next year, in 11 3/4 months from now, the Islanders cannot allow things to go downhill with Matthew Schaefer the way things got testy with Leo Carlsson and the Anaheim Ducks. It is critical for this organization and the perception of it and the play on the ice of it. They need to build around Matthew Schaefer, and if they lose him, just like they lost John Tavares, boy, oh boy, this team's perception is going to be nobody wants to stay here, especially star players. And that's going to be a huge, huge problem that it will take a long time to undo. We have got a lot more to discuss on today's show. The Islanders last week announced that Rocky Thompson will be the point man, in quotes, on the power play. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about where Isaiah George fits in. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a winger from Red Deer, Alberta, who was with the Islanders from the early 2000s to the early 2000 teens. Let's see if you can guess who this player is. We've got that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. And that's what makes tournament soccer exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kickoff. Now, FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals means more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. And look, I'd be looking for those matches where both teams are aggressive offensively because those games can open up fast. The more chances being created, the more exciting the match becomes from beginning to end. And now you get to benefit from each goal scored. From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. That's FanDuel.com to get started now. So last week, and, because it was the week one of free agency and we had prospects camp, there was, a lot of other things that we were discussing. But the Islanders did announce that Rocky Thompson, who is now an assistant coach with the Islanders, and last year was the head coach at Bridgeport, now Hamilton, he's going to be the point guy on the power play. So he's the assistant coach that will run the power play. DeBoer telling reporters, Rocky's going to be the point guy on our power play. I mean, our staff is going to work in collaboration on everything, so it won't just be one guy. We'll discuss everything. That's kind of how I work. But he'll be the point guy on it, and he's got experience. And he said he ran Bob Bugner's power play in San Jose. He ran Philadelphia's power play. And despite his playing career and stats, he really thinks the game from an offensive point of view and has some brilliant ideas offensively, which is great. And more importantly than that, he's a teacher. He really connects with the players. And so we've already started that process, planting some seeds on what we want to do in those areas. Matt Barzal was around the facilities this week. So was Kyle Palmieri. So we're starting to plant those seeds wherever we can. And look, I think that's fine. I have no issue with Rocky Thompson taking over as the point man on the power play. We know the Islanders' power play was 30th in the NHL last year, 31st the year before. It's been a problem area for a long time. And everydayers will recall, because I've addressed this several times on the show over the last few years, there are a number of issues with the Islanders' power play. And if you watched the playoffs, or even if you just watched Islander hockey, and you watched how the Islander power play operates, and you watched how the opposing team's power play operates, the opposing teams move the puck faster than the Islanders typically do. Their players move without the puck a lot more than the Islanders players typically do. They try to get good quality shots, not just staying on the perimeter more than the Islanders do. They make the penalty killers work more. And that is coaching, okay? But let's face this. Bob Bugner was power play coach last year. You had John McClain the year before. There have been several different power play coaches in recent years for the New York Islanders, and the results have mostly been the same. And let's face this, part of it is a lack of talent. When I say a lack of talent, the Islanders don't have enough goal scorers. They had a grand total of 3 20-goal scorers last year, and one of them was a defenseman in Matthew Schaefer. The other two were Bo Horvat, who had 31, and Emil Heineman, who had a career-high 22. Figuring out how to get more productivity out of the power play without adding a dynamic goal scorer to the roster, and that's unlikely to happen look, the earliest it's likely to happen is the trade deadline, right? Because the Islanders don't have the cap space right now to go out and add, 9, 10, $11 million to get a high-powered goal scorer. That's just not where this team is at based on the contracts and no trade clauses that this team has right now. Matthew Darche addressed that. Again, part of it is on his predecessor, part of it is on him, but that's where we are. Would it help the Islanders' power play to redesign it a little and rely less on Matt Barzal handling the puck? Because while Barzy is a dynamic skater, he often holds the puck for long stretches of the power play, circles around in the defensive zone or the Islanders' offensive zone, holds the puck, and then either turns it over or it stays on the perimeter, and 10, 15, 20 seconds come off the power play. So I think coaching can help, but I think really it can't just be a tweak. At this point, look, getting Kyle Palmieri back will help. Braden Shen for a full year could help on the power play. Shen, certainly did he added one power play goal in 19 games. I don't anticipate him adding a lot more, but he could add 5 or 6. Cal Ritchie looked good on the power play. Maybe he blossoms in his second full NHL season. He had 5 power play goals in 65 games, but he wasn't playing on the power play early on in the season that much. So, again, you're going to need somebody to replace Anders Lee and his net front presence. Maybe that is Shen. Ultimately, Rocky Thompson has his work cut out for him. He's worked well with young players in the AHL. He's worked with NHL players in the past, as Peter DeBoer was alluding to. It will be up to him to figure out how to get a little bit more from this power play. And hopefully, this team can get to somewhere between, let's say, 12th and 18th in the middle of NHL power plays. You do that, you're going to add some points to your final record at the end of the season, and maybe you have a better chance of competing for a playoff berth. Because I'll tell you right now, being in the bottom 4 or 5 power plays in the league for a team that is challenged offensively to begin with is not a recipe for making the playoffs. We have got more to get to on today's show. We'll talk Isaiah George and where he could fit into this lineup. We've got that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focused on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working toward the same goal, and that's true in sports, just like it is in business. I mean, making adjustments are important, but what really impresses me is how smoothly they can be implemented. Everyone knows their role. Everyone was on the same page, and that's usually what separates good organizations from great ones. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try it for free at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. All right. We have been hearing this past week at Prospects Camp and at the draft, a lot of talk about how the Islanders, and in particular, Peter DeBoer and Matthew Darche, want to see Isaiah George make the opening night roster. And I think he definitely should be on the opening night roster. And as always, you got to earn that spot. Nobody should give it to him, but clearly they're saying, go, it's there for the taking, go get it. That is the approach that the general manager and the head coach of this team seems to be taking with Isaiah George. Isaiah George, however, if you look at this roster and how it stacks up right now, the Islanders have a little bit of a glut on the blue line. And look, you've got on the left side, you've got Matthew Schaefer. He's your number one. Adam Pelech, Alexander Romanov. You got Isaiah George. Then you have the right side. You have on the right side Ryan Pollock, Tony DeAngelo, Scott Mayfield. You signed Matthew Kessel. That's probably your 7th D, the replacement for Adam Boqvist, who was not qualified. Where does Isaiah George fit in? Now, George can play the right side, even though he's a left shot. So that opens up some other possibilities. But it also increases the thought that someone on this blue line possibly could be moved. And we've heard rumors about Alexander Romanov, whose no-trade clause doesn't kick in until July 1st. We've heard rumors about Adam Pelech, who is now on a partial no-trade 16-team list rather than a full no-trade, which he had up until July 1st of this year. There are a lot of things going on with possible moves. Will Matthew Darche move one of them? We don't know. If he doesn't, where exactly does Isaiah George fit in? Could Scott Mayfield be the 7th defenseman and George fills in on the right side of the third pair? That's a possibility, but we'll see. Remember, George's game is that steady, defensive zone guy who doesn't have a lot of offensive upside, but is smart with the puck and moves it well, skates pretty well. But again, he's not going to be a 15-goal, 50-point NHL player. So we'll see how this fits in, but it clearly points to the possibility of another move. And one thing I don't want to see, and I've mentioned this in the Everydayer Club chat, but I don't want to see Isaiah George be the 7th defenseman, because the 7th defenseman is, again, going to play like, what did Boqvist play? 25 games in each of the last couple of years. He's not going to improve as a player. So if you want him to make the roster, he should be in the top 6. A veteran is better suited to be that 7th guy, and we'll see how that all plays out sometime between now and the start of the season. Going to be interesting to see what happens. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day, and Sunday was the 46th birthday of former Islanders forward Trent Hunter, the Red Deer, Alberta native, a 6th-round pick of the then Anaheim Mighty Ducks back in 1998, but he made his NHL debut with the Islanders in the 2002 playoffs, had a goal and 2 assists in 4 games that year, became a regular in 2003-2004, stayed on the island through the 2010-2011 season, and then spent 1 year with the LA Kings. His best year, 25 goals, 51 points in 03-04 with the Islanders. Finished his career with 497 NHL games, 101 goals, 236 points, 209 penalty minutes, add 4 goals and 5 points in 14 playoff games, with all of those being as a member of the Islanders. One of his better games as an Islander, how about December 31st, 2003, Islanders at Pittsburgh to take on the Penguins. Garth Snow, the Islanders goalie, Sebastian Caron in the goal for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And in this game, with the Islanders up 1-0 midway through the first period, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Trent Hunter scores his 11th goal of the year. Adrian Aucoin, who was an Islanders' birthday of the day last week, he had the lone assist. Eric Cairns with the lone assist. Islanders up 2-0, and they're up 3-0 after one period. But Islanders up 4-0 in the second on the power play. Our Islanders' birthday of the day, Trent Hunter scores, Sean Bates, and yes, Adrian Aucoin with the assist. It's a power play goal late in the period. That put the Islanders up by a score of 5-1. They go on to win it 6-1. Our Islanders' birthday of the day, Trent Hunter had 2 goals. He was a +1. He had 5 shots on goal. Jason Blake had 6 to pace the Islanders in this one. Hunter had the game winner, and he was on the ice for 12 minutes and 42 seconds. Trent Hunter, a reliable two-way forward for the New York Islanders. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 till the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey. We are here now 3 days a week for the next few weeks as we are on our summer off-season schedule. So join us Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here for the time being. But we'll get back to our full Monday through Friday schedule before training camp gets underway. So make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're proud to be part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason, and we're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Everydayers will be back Wednesday with the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings, so make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. Hope everybody in the United States had a great 4th of July weekend. And of course, let's go Islanders.